Mollusks and annelids? Could it be a new rock band? Here, I'll give you a couple of hints. A mollusk is an animal that usually has at least one shell. And an annelid, well, that one's kind of hard to tell just from its name. Annelids are segmented worms, like earthworms. Let's see if my friend has something to say on this that'll help us get a better idea.
You know, we've talked about some simple worm-like creatures, and when we've talked about the platyhelminthes and the nematodes. But you know, most of us, when we think of worms, we think of real worms, the kind you put on a fish hook, you know. And if you're a fisherman or a fisherwoman, you know that unless you've really thought about a worm, it just seems to be something that when you pop it open or step on it, it's just got a bunch of black gook inside of it. But nothing could be further from the truth. Let me show you. Now, this is a worm, all right? We are talking worm here. First of all, let's talk about what makes a worm such an advanced organism compared to those other worms, all right? Well, remember what it's about. To be a multicellular heterotroph, you got to have specialized tissues. This worm has specialized tissues. Let's talk about some of these things. First of all, it has an anterior end and a posterior end, right? A head end and a rear end, if you will. And it has that one-way digestive system with two separate openings, a mouth and an anus. But that's not all. It has organs that literally, and organ systems that take care of a lot of stuff. A brain that coordinates movement. Think about that. Why would a worm need to move? Well, it needs to move because it eats its way through the soil. They live in the dirt, at least this particular earthworm would. Okay? It has literally several hearts. It has a bloodstream. It has look at this digestive system, okay? It's got a mouth, a pharynx, an esophagus, a crop, a gizzard, a small intestine. It has on the outside specialized little hair-like structures called setae that it anchors with, and so it grabs on and pushes itself forward and then releases them and then grabs on and pushes itself forward. I mean, this is a complicated organism. It's not just a bunch of black hook on a fish hook, okay? It even is segmented. Now, think of the animals we've talked about. So this is the first organism we've seen with segments. And these segments just aren't on the outside, they're on the inside too. And now I get to tell you what group this belongs to. This thing belongs to a group called annelids. Now, what makes this so special? Well, if you look at the term annelid, right, you kind of sound, the spelling doesn't look quite the same. But if you think of it, you hear the word annual in there. And annual means yearly, and this has nothing to do with year, but it has to do with a cycle. It really comes from the root word meaning ring. And if you look at the inside of a worm, these segments aren't just on the outside, they're on the inside too. So let me show you, okay, if I were drawing a worm and say it was a see-through worm, okay, and we could see on the inside of its segments, we would see a very interesting thing. First of all, it would have this digestive system going through it. It would have bloodstream going through it, right? But here's the thing. Just to show you how cool this is, you know a worm, you probably know this, a worm is filled with fluid, right? Its body is filled with fluid, not blood. The blood flows in the circulatory system. But that fluid has to be cleaned out. And every single segment has a pair of structures that are just like kidneys. And so what they do is they open up in this segment, okay? Fluid goes in there. It travels to the next segment where there's an opening to the outside. Same thing over here. If this were another segment, okay, the kidney-like structure would be there. It's inside, and then it would travel to the outside. So what I'm trying to show you is this whole idea of segmentation, thus the name annelid, is very, very important for these organisms. And it's a key in really the whole idea of animals, because from here, this thing, I mean, with this coelomic cavity and the organs that it has inside of it, just think about that. This, in many ways, has the same organs that we have. We're just a slightly different multicellular heterotroph, which, by the way, is probably a good thing.
Hey, were you planning
Let's take a
on
quick
ordering
break
anything
before the
else
next
for that
video.
extra A+ money?
Okay,
Because
here we
I
go.
sent her some